just launched its spy satellite into space, and this has raised tensions globally, given the country's hostile nature to foreign countries. In response to this perceived threat, the US has entered a race to produce the world's most advanced spacecraft as a contingency plan to tackle coming threats from North Korea. To make this spacecraft, the US military partnered with SpaceX. The most advanced spacecraft has been developed with SpaceX engineers working on this project. How has the North Korean spacecraft affected the global scene? What makes this spacecraft exceptional? Join us as we explore the secret SpaceX airplane that intercepted North Korean spy satellite. According to South Korea, the North Korean spy satellite has successfully entered orbit, with one South Korean MP suggesting that Russia played a role in making this achievement possible. North Korean state media has announced that the satellite will undergo adjustments before starting its official mission on December 1st. CNN's Will Ripley reports on the rising tensions in the Korean peninsula, where North Korea claims significant progress in its satellite program. Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un is depicted in state media as triumphant, celebrating the victory of the third attempt to place a spy satellite into orbit after two previous failures earlier in the year. North Korea promises additional satellite launches shortly, with satellites playing a crucial role in enhancing the accuracy of the country's intercontinental ballistic missile program, despite being banned by the United Nations Security Council. There are suspicions that Russian rockets may have assisted North Korea in perfecting its missile program, with scientists allegedly acting on orders from President Vladimir Putin. A September summit between Kim and Putin at a Russian space launch complex signaled Moscow's growing support for Pyongyang's space program, potentially involving a partnership providing Putin with North Korean weapons for Russian soldiers in Ukraine. Japanese authorities issued an emergency warning regarding what they believe to be a satellite carrying a ballistic missile flying over Okinawa. South Korea reacted swiftly by suspending military pacts with North Korea. The successful launch of North Korea's spy satellite raises concerns about improving its technology and the potential for reconnaissance capabilities. The South Korean military reported a ballistic missile launch less than 24 hours after the satellite launch from the North Korean capital area, but it is believed to have failed shortly after takeoff. In response to the escalating concerns about national security, the United States Air Force has initiated a groundbreaking mission involving the deployment of a cutting-edge supersonic spaceplane. This ambitious endeavor, marked by a significant milestone as the Pentagon openly collaborates with SpaceX, Elon Musk's pioneering aerospace company, aims to address the evolving challenges posed by potential adversaries. This collaboration is a big change in how the military and private space companies work together. Although this mission's announcement is the first time it's public, there have been secret projects between the US government and SpaceX. One of these hidden projects involved testing a super-fast plane, showing a big moment in exploring advanced flying abilities. SpaceX engineers played a key role, showing how military and private experts can join forces. The result of these secret projects is the SR-72, a strong and extremely fast fighter plane. It can go over 4,000 miles per hour, an amazing 6 times the speed of sound. The SR-72 is a huge step forward in spying abilities. Its incredible speed means that potential enemies won't have much time to react, making it a crucial tool in protecting the country. In July of this year, the SR-72 had its first flight tests, but it was kept a secret until September, when it was revealed to the public. Skunk Works, a secretive design department at Lockheed Martin, developed the aircraft, but there were issues with understanding how fast it needed to go. SpaceX was brought in to help solve this problem. SpaceX is known for its expertise in making engines for very fast planes, making them the perfect partner to overcome the technical challenges of achieving incredibly high speeds. The SR-72 uses a turbojet engine that can work in different ways. It first speeds up to Mach 2 and then switches to a special airjet mode, making it go an amazing 4,000 miles per hour. The main reason for this super-fast speed is for spying and ensuring the aircraft is almost impossible for enemy defenses to stop. The SR-72 can quickly collect important information when flying at top speed using high-tech sensors and radars. After that, it can move to a safe place, avoiding threats and going around enemy defenses very efficiently. As the SR-72 continues to be developed, two versions are being considered, one without a pilot and one with a pilot. Both versions are expected to have powerful weapons, including new lightweight missiles. These missiles don't need very high speeds to work well, showing that the aircraft can be versatile and focus on hitting targets very precisely. The progress in military aviation, especially in hypersonic capabilities, has big implications for world politics. China's ability to use satellites to launch missiles in space has made the United States rethink its technology. The Pentagon, working with SpaceX, is very important to deal with these new challenges. SpaceX knows a lot about space and satellites, making them a key partner in developing ways to protect against these new threats. One result of this teamwork is the X-37B, a spacecraft kept secret for a long time. It was first sent into space in 2010, and the United States hid its features. However, recent information from the Space Force shows that this mysterious aircraft is a response to the possible threat from Chinese satellites. The X-37B can fly as high as 350 miles, where artificial satellites usually orbit. What makes this aircraft special is that it can stay in space for an incredible 750 days. Making this possible required new and creative designs, including a special shape similar to the space shuttle and a completely new ion engine, showing SpaceX's dedication to pushing the limits of technology. A clear sign of SpaceX's important role is the use of Falcon Heavy, a rocket made by the same company, to launch the X-37B into space. This shows how military and private space projects are connected, and progress in space exploration helps national security. The X-37B isn't just in space, it's also equipped to destroy satellites. Regular missiles don't work well in space, so Lockheed Martin's Law's combat laser is a smart solution. With a powerful 60 kilowatt capacity, this laser can destroy the technological parts of a satellite in less than 10 seconds, and it doesn't run out of ammunition. The way countries are advancing in technology shows how they compete in space. China's ability to use combat satellites has made the United States feel the need to strengthen its defenses. The Pentagon's choice to work with SpaceX is a smart move to join forces against new threats. However, only some in the United States agree on these advancements. Some people worry that making super-fast planes and space weapons could cause problems. They say it might worsen tensions and start a race to build more weapons, making the world less stable. China's skill in using combat satellites is why the United States is rushing to improve its technology. The goal is to find ways to defend against new threats. This might be why the Pentagon is teaming up with SpaceX, a company that knows much about space, to protect the country's interests. These collaborations also involve the world stage. Countries make strategic and counter moves, and partnerships with private companies go beyond borders. The meeting in September between Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin at a Russian space launch site shows Russia's increasing support for North Korea's space program. This support is seen as a way for Russia to get North Korean weapons, which could affect conflicts like the one in Ukraine. Elon Musk's company is sending planes into space, while NASA is testing a new plane that says it can invade space. The B-21 Raider is a super-modern plane, the first new bomber for the United States in 30 years. Smart people at the Pentagon work together to make it, and it's not just powerful with nuclear bombs, but it can also hide with a fancy camouflage system, making it a strong force in today's wars. But it is special because it can work with artificial intelligence and act like a drone. When the B-21 Raider was tested at NASA, it became more than just a regular bomber. It turned into a high-tech drone. While flying, a smart electronic system keeps an eye on where it is, connected to all the parts and engines. Modern artificial intelligence, like a smart computer, guides all its moves. Surprisingly, the B-21 Raider can still be flown by a pilot if needed. This makes it a good choice for war because there's no risk to a human pilot. Artificial intelligence works tirelessly, following rules and making military operations more reliable. The B-21 has a fancy navigation system called Rockwell Collins, which sometimes helps pilots and takes control. It also has a special Link 16 system, often called Sky Internet, that can send lots of data quickly. This turns the B-21 Raider into a possible command center, helping other planes and drones coordinate. The plane's body improved too, so it can fly high up, almost like it's in space. Imagine a plane that can fly by itself, carry nuclear bombs, and go into space. It sounds cool, but also a bit scary. The B-21 Raider, with its artificial intelligence and drone abilities, shows how smart and advanced the United States is in military technology. This move towards using unmanned planes with AI is changing how we think about keeping our country safe and making defense plans. But there's not just one high-tech plane like the B-21 Raider. NASA engineers are also working on improving old planes like the F-15. It's not getting fancy lasers or hidden features, though. Instead, it's being tested to see if it can work in outer space. The F-15 Model A came from the U.S. Air Force in 1976, and NASA used it for more than 25 special projects to study how it flies, its power, and how it controls and measures things. These tests put the F-15 through all sorts of situations, like being soaked in special liquids or trying out its systems in a vacuum. Passing these tests means we might see a similar plane in outer space soon. This shows that in the world of exploring air and space, old planes are always being checked and changed to meet the needs of today's military and science goals. While we hear a lot about fighter planes, it's important to understand all the different improvements happening. The United States is working on improving the F-35 Lightning II, thinking about ways to use the F-22 on aircraft carriers, letting other countries use F-16S, and even creating a new fighter with super-fast capabilities to defeat enemies quickly. This strong effort to improve air and space technology shows a commitment to staying ahead in the military and being ready for new challenges. Among the existing fighter planes, the F-22 Raptor stands out as the best, showing how much technology has improved. It can fly high, up to 62,000 feet, and go as fast as 1,500 miles per hour. What makes it special is its amazing performance and how quickly it was tested and started being used, faster than similar planes from other countries. But as technology in the military keeps changing, it also makes people worried and brings up arguments. Only some people in the United States think these advancements are good. The fast development of hypersonic planes and the idea of using weapons in space make people think about what's right and what's not. Some argue that being so good with technology could make problems worse, creating more tensions between countries and starting a race to build more and more weapons. This could lead to more problems and instability around the world. The F-22 Raptor is not just any combat aircraft, it's the most expensive one ever, costing a whopping $146 million. It's all about survivability for this jet, built to endure high explosive attacks. The cockpit has specially made polycarbonate glass that's super strong and coated to scatter radio waves. This makes the plane invisible to radar and protects it from direct hits. The Raptor stands out for its radar system, which comprises 2,000 elements. It can spot targets from 140 miles away and cruise missiles from 77 miles away, a record among fighter jets. While it was originally designed for air battles, it's not the go-to for ground attacks, but there's a counterpart that's good at both air and ground combat. The F-35 Lightning II is also a real technological marvel and the most popular fifth-generation fighter jet. People love it for its fantastic features. The F-35's engines make it go up to 1,200 miles per hour and can switch to a vertical thrust mode. This unique feature lets the F-35 land without needing a regular landing strip, making it the only fighter used on aircraft carriers, even though it's not designed for them. Its stealth abilities also make the F-35 a star. In a time when detection technology is advancing, the F-35 has mastered staying invisible to the radar. The redesign of its stealth systems, including reflective plating, a sleek shape, and a smart system blocking radar, keeps the F-35 hidden from the enemy's detection. The F-35 Lightning II also has some cool features that make it stand out. Its pilot's helmet is a high-tech marvel with a built-in display. This display shows important info right in front of the pilot's eyes. It's handy during intense combat, saving time looking for critical information. Talking about the F-35's weapons, it's armed with ISRAAM-guided cruise missiles that can go faster than 2,500 miles per hour, a real threat to big airborne enemies. If the target is smaller, a powerful 4-barreled 25mm cannon can turn them into a sieve in seconds. And for ground targets, there's the AGM-158, a massive high-precision cruise missile designed to take out well-protected targets, even in tough weather. But here's the surprise. These powerful missiles aren't only for the F-35. The older F-22 Raptor also has its tricks, like the HARM anti-radar missiles that can find and destroy enemy radars. Plus, both planes can carry cluster and nuclear bombs, showing they can handle different combat scenarios. Now let's switch gears to the F-16 Fighting Falcon. It's got more than 10 versions and an equal number of local versions, and the newest one, the F-16V, has some cool features. It's compact and maneuverable, perfect for quick and unexpected attacks. Its agility and numbers make it a strong force, even against more advanced enemies. After using the F-16 for many years, developers realized it had more potential. They started looking at the tech used in newer fighters and made improvements, like a better stealth system. The surface of the F-16V is covered in tiny particles of a special substance, and they upgraded everything from the layout to the electronic equipment. Now it's one of the most advanced planes of its time. But that's not all the US has in its arsenal. The United States Air Force's next generation, Air Dominance program, is still in progress, with a cost of about $16 billion, and aim to bring in 6th-generation fighters with good speed, height, stealth, and new technology. The NGAD fighter is being developed. The new fighter plane is super fast, reaching 1,800 miles per hour. This speed helps it react quickly in the air and move in and out of areas with enemies, making it strong in fights. It can fly very high, up to 15 miles, where only a few enemies can fight well, giving it a big advantage in the sky. The NGAD fighter has a special coating that makes it almost impossible for radar to find it. This helps it stay hidden from enemies, making it tough for them to discover and attack it. This feature gives the NGAD fighter an advantage in any battle, allowing it to work secretly and hit targets accurately. Another cool thing about the NGAD fighter is that it uses smart computer technology like a brain. This computer helps the fighter make decisions independently, making it smart. One interesting thing it can do is control a group of drones, making it more flexible and better in fights. The computer helps the NGAD fighter do well in situations that change quickly. The NGAD fighter has two types of drones. The first type has super precise radars, covering a big area to spot any threats far away. When these drones are set up around an area, they create a zone that's hard for anything to get through without being noticed. When the fighter sees a threat, it can send out the second type of drone. These drones have powerful weapons and are accurate. They can quickly remove threats aimed at a target, making them strong in attacks. The NGAD fighter and its drones working together is a new way of doing air battles. The computer helps the fighter know what's happening around it, and the drones help it reach and attack enemies better. With its speed, ability to stay hidden, and control over drones, the NGAD fighter is a tough force in modern battles. The partnership between the US military and SpaceX has created the most advanced spacecraft ever, a big step in exploring space. This partnership is like a new adventure into space, using better engines and modern tech to do things we couldn't before. It's just the start, and more spacecraft improvements are coming. As technology improves, adding things like smart computers and special materials could completely change how we travel in space. This teamwork makes the country safer and gets everyone excited about all the amazing things we could do in the vast universe. For decades, the government, shrouded in secrecy, has continuously dismissed reports relating to the appearance of unknown flying objects in the skies and even mysterious disappearances of not only military personnel, but civilians as well. These conspiracy theories have left the world in a curious state. Finally, the Pentagon has finally broken its silence concerning some recent revelations and scary sightings. What has the Pentagon been hiding? Should the world be worried about these revelations? Join us as we delve into the shocking details of what the Pentagon revealed when it finally breaks silence on recent UFO sightings. After rigorous investigations, the Pentagon has finally addressed the issue of UFOs that has become a subject of worry amongst billions of people. They have once again dismissed the existence of extraterrestrial beings due to lack of evidence, but several sightings across the world proves otherwise. Let's go into details starting from the most chilling occurrence. This event happened in March 1956 in the city of Mexico, where Jonathan Lovett was assisting Major William Cunningham in the White Sands Missile Testing Ground that is located close to the Holloman Air Force Base. These men were engaged in their search for debris from a recent rocket test when Major Cunningham heard a loud scream from his partner. He stopped in fear, and his first thought was that Sergeant Levitt had been bitten by a snake. He immediately charged towards the direction of the scream, but when he got there, the sight that was before him immediately turned his blood cold. He remembered seeing his partner being dragged away by something that was beyond his imagination, an extremely long serpentine arm wrapped around Sergeant Levity's leg. The weird creature was connected to a disc that was hovering in the air about 15 feet away. The Major stood frozen in shock and watched the sergeant and the creature retreat into the hovering disc. Once they were both out of sight, the disc rose vertically into the sky, and with a speed that defies logic disappeared, leaving no traces behind. The sergeant's first move when he got over his shock was to call for help, and when help did arrive, he was taken to the hospital for observations while search teams were sent out in search of the sergeant. The search team found the sergeant's body after 3 days, 10 miles away from the site that he disappeared from. There was a suggestion to perform an autopsy, which would help to understand the cause of his death, but the autopsy only raised more questions because the body was severely harmed. They investigated this incident, and people claimed that the report from the investigation was detailed in a 600-page document that is labeled Project Grudge Report 13. Despite the several questions that were left unanswered, there was no official information statement made concerning the issue, and it was treated like the Report 13 didn't exist. Even the United States government denied its existence. Let us take a look at another event referred to as the Belgium Wave. In November 1989, citizens of Belgium reported a big triangular UFO in the sky. Military ground radar stations confirmed the sightings, and F-16 fighter jets were sent out to investigate this object. Despite not being visible to the pilots, the radars detected the UFOs moving too fast, avoiding being pursued. About 13,500 people witnessed this widely experienced UFO sighting. Approximately 10 minutes later, some later reports stated that a second set of lights were seen moving towards the first triangle. Traffic center control at Semerzaki tracked one object only on its radar, and an order to scramble 2 F-16 fighters from Beauvais Air Base was given. Throughout this time, in reports after the event, some people claimed that the phenomenon was visible from the ground, describing the whole formation as maintaining their relative positions while moving slowly across the sky. Over the next hour, the 2 F-16s attempted 9 separate interceptions of the targets. On 3 occasions, they managed to obtain a radar lock for a few seconds, but these were later shown to be radar locks on each other. The pilots never reported seeing any of the claimed sightings, saw none of the claimed maneuvers, and never got a lock on any objects apart from the other F-16. The other contacts were all found to be the result of a well-known atmospheric interference called Bragg scattering. After 30 seconds, radar contact became much more sporadic, and the final confirmed lock took place at the 40th second. Following several further unconfirmed contacts, the F-16s eventually returned to base shortly after. Members of the Wavre Gendarmerie, who had been sent to confirm the original report, describe 4 lights now being arranged in a square formation, all making short, jerky movements, before gradually losing their light and disappearing in 4 separate directions. They also reported that a low engine noise was heard and that it seemed to have a stick coming out one end with a turbine on it, which has led many to conclude the object was a helicopter. Another strange occurrence was the Air Force disappearance. On the 23rd of November 1953, close to the Canadian-US border, there was a blip on the radar where there should be one on that fateful day. The blip meant that there was an unidentified object that was in restricted airspace over Lake Superior. To investigate what was going on, an F-89C Scorpion jet with 2 crew members were sent. The crew members included the pilot, Lieutenant Felix Montclair, and Lieutenant Robert Wilson was observing the radar. Once they were airborne, they found it extremely hard to track the object because it kept changing course. They pursued the unknown object that flew at 500 miles per hour. After a while, 2 blips were observed on the radar, one which belonged to the unknown object and the other belonged to the fighter. These 2 flying objects suddenly converged at a point, and they both went off the radar and disappeared. The radar blip from the unidentified object also disappeared. The men who were sent to investigate in the jet never returned from the mission, and there was no wreckage found to signify if there was an accident. Despite extensive searches, the men and the jet just disappeared completely. It is said that the explanations for the disappearance that have been released throughout the years have changed and flip-flopped, and what they say happened. So at this point, no one has any idea what really went on here. The next contact with aliens was experienced by Dr. Brian O'Leary. Dr. Brian O'Leary is a former NASA astronaut and Princeton physics professor. According to him, there was some evidence that we have been contacted and that other civilizations have been monitoring us for a very long time. He mentioned that their appearance is bizarre from any type of traditional materialistic Western point of view. Apparently, he also said that these visitors use the technologies of consciousness, that they use droids, they use co-rotating magnetic disks for their propulsion systems, which seems to be the common denominator of the UFO phenomenon. If this event was not creepy enough, let us move on to another chilling sighting that is referred to as the Roswell incident. This event occurred in 1947 when some sort of crash took place near a ranch in Roswell, New Mexico. Shortly after this, the Roswell Army Airfield released a statement saying that they had recovered a flying disc from the ranch. But the Army quickly retracted the statement and said that it wasn't that, but instead it was just a conventional weather balloon. Their response was dishonest, but most people let it slide until the 1970s. What happened in the 70s is that a retired lieutenant colonel began to speak out in an interview with a UFO researcher. He said that the weather balloon story was a cover-up and that alien remains were actually recovered from the crash site. There were both first and second-hand witnesses who claimed that not only were there at least one, but possibly more alien spacecraft that had crashed at the scene, that there were also extraterrestrial remains that were recovered by the military, who then began to engage in a cover-up. In 1994, the story changed from a weather balloon to a nuclear test surveillance balloon from Project Mogul, and it was stated that the stories of the alien bodies were probably just test dummies that had been dropped from high altitudes. Another event occurred in Stephenville, UFO. In January of 2008, in the small town of Stephenville, Texas, a bunch of residents all saw something in the sky that they couldn't believe. In the beginning, there appeared to be white lights in the sky that were first in a single arc, but then they quickly moved to form 2 parallel lines. It was estimated that the lights were spanning about a mile long and half of a mile wide. But the craziest part is that it was flying at 3,000 miles per hour, which is similar to the speed of a fighter jet, but there was no sound reported at all. The government chalked this sighting up to a U.S. Air Force flight operation, but many of the residents who saw this event on that day were absolutely not convinced and truly felt like they were lied to. Some even explained that what they saw was too technologically advanced for human civilization. A similar thing happened in the Rendlesham Forest incident in December of 1980. The incident took place in the Rendlesham Forest, which is a pine forest in England that at the time sat in between two United States Air Force bases, RAF Bentwaters and RAF Woodbridge. Several nights around the same time for a year, a number of creditable military personnel reported strange and colorful lights both above and in the forest. Some of those who were sent to investigate the strange lights reported seeing a triangular craft at close range, and there was even a famous audio tape of the encounter. After these happenings, the United Kingdom Ministry of Defense claimed that the incident posed no threat to national security, and because of that, it was never investigated further. What really happened in the forest all those years ago remains a total mystery, but those who actually witnessed the lights and the aircraft are said to have remained totally baffled. On the 26th of December 1980, a security patrol near the east gate of RAF Woodbridge saw lights apparently descending into nearby Rendlesham Forest. These lights have been attributed by astronomers to a piece of natural debris seen burning up as a fireball over southern England at that time. Servicemen initially thought it was a downed aircraft. According to Halt's memo, upon entering the forest to investigate, they witnessed a glowing object that was metallic in appearance with colored lights. As they attempted to approach the object, it moved through the trees, and the animals on a nearby farm became restless. One of the servicemen, Sergeant Jim Peniston, later claimed to have encountered an aircraft of unknown origin while in the forest, although there was no publicized mention of this at the time, and there is no corroboration from other witnesses. Shortly after, local police were called to the scene, but reported that the only lights they could see were those from the Orford Ness Lighthouse, some miles away on the coast. After daybreak, on the morning of 26th of December, servicemen returned to a small clearing near the eastern edge of the forest and found 3 small impressions on the ground in a triangular pattern, as well as burn marks and broken branches on nearby trees. The deputy base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, visited the site with several servicemen in the early hours of 28th of December 1980. They took radiation readings in the triangle of depressions and in the surrounding area using an AN/PDR-27, a standard U.S. military radiation survey meter. Although they recorded 0.07 milliroentgens per hour, in other regions they detected 0.03 to 0.04 milliroentgens per hour, around the background level. Furthermore, they detected a similar small burst over half a mile away from the landing site. Halt recorded the events on a microcassette recorder. It was during this investigation that a flashing red light was seen across the field to the east, almost in line with a farmhouse as the witnesses had seen on the first night. The Orford Ness Lighthouse is visible further to the east in the same line of sight. Later, according to Halt's memo, 3 star-like lights were seen in the sky, 2 to the north and 1 to the south, about 10 degrees above the horizon. Halt said that the brightest of these hovered for 2 to 3 hours and seemed to beam down a stream of light from time to time. Astronomers have explained these star-like lights as bright stars. While the issue at the Rendlesham Forest was dismissed, there was another unexplained UFO in 2017. After the existence of the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program became more well-known, a video was released of an encounter between an FA-18 Super Hornet and some sort of unidentified flying object. There weren't a ton of details released about exactly what happened during this encounter, but using the Raytheon Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared Pod, they were able to capture an extremely fast-moving white oval that was around 45 feet long. The oval had no wings, and it didn't appear to have any kind of exhaust either. They were tracking the UFO at an altitude of 25,000 feet just above the Atlantic Ocean, and then they were shocked as the craft rotated on its axis and flew away. There was no explanation released with the footage because it truly is unbelievable and currently unexplainable. In our number 3 spot today, we have the USS Princeton UFO. This UFO sighting comes from 2004. On November 14th of that year, the USS Princeton noticed an unknown aircraft of some sort that was about 100 miles off of the coast of San Diego. For 2 weeks prior to this crew had been tracking a strange flying object that would start out at around 80,000 feet before extremely quickly dropping to hover right above the Pacific Ocean. Black Aces Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Jim Slate of Strike Fighter Squadron 41 went over in 2 fighter jets in order to kind of scope out the situation. And when they arrived, they saw what at first appeared to be churning water while there was just an oval shape just below the surface. After this, a white oval-shaped object appeared above the water, but it had no markings on it at all, no windows, nothing that would indicate an engine, and no wings. And the infrared monitors on the jet didn't pick up any sort of exhaust. The commander and lieutenant commander tried to intercept this strange aircraft, but it very quickly flew away and reappeared on the monitor 60 miles away. This strange sighting was, of course, later investigated by the US government, but the results of that investigation have allegedly been mostly destroyed. Another unknown flying object was seen in New Jersey. This UFO sighting took place in 2001. A group that is called the New York Strange Phenomena Investigators claimed that they received radar data that night that would corroborate the story that the witnesses were telling. It may not have been aliens, but it certainly was some sort of unidentified flying object that no one had ever seen before. And there were people from all walks of life witnessing it together. The last mysterious occurrence we would go into details about is the disappearance of Frederick Valentich, an Australian pilot in 1978. He reported being accompanied by an unknown aircraft before radio contact was lost. The search yielded no results, and theories range from staged disappearance to alien abduction. This man was an Australian pilot who disappeared while on a 125 nautical missile training flight in a Cessna 182L aircraft, registered VHDSJ, Ove Base Strait. On the evening of 21st of October 1978, 20-year-old Valentich informed Melbourne Air Traffic Control that he was being accompanied by an aircraft about 1,000 feet above him and that his engine had begun running roughly. His final words were, "It's not an aircraft," before he disappeared from the surface of the Earth. There were delayed reports of a UFO sighting in Australia on the night of the disappearance. However, the Associated Press reported that the Department of Transport was skeptical. A UFO was behind Valentich's disappearance, and that some of their officials speculated that Valentich became disoriented and saw his own lights reflected in the water, or lights from a nearby island, while flying upside down. Frederick Valentich had about 150 total hours flying time and held a Class 4 instrument rating, which authorized him to fly at night, but only in visual meteorological conditions. He had twice applied to enlist in the Royal Australian Air Force, but was rejected because of inadequate educational qualifications. He was a member of the RAAF Air Training Corps, determined to have a career in aviation. Valentich was studying part-time to become a commercial pilot, but had a poor achievement record, having twice failed all 5 commercial license examination subjects, and as recently as the month before, his disappearance had failed 3 more commercial license subjects. He had been involved in flying incidents, for example, straying into a controlled zone in Sydney, for which he received a warning, and twice deliberately flying into a cloud, for which prosecution was being considered. According to his father, Guido, Valentich was an ardent believer in UFOs and had been worried about being attacked by them. The destination of Valentich's final flight was King Island, but his motivation for the flight is unknown. He told flight officials that he was going to King Island to pick up some friends, while he told others that he was going to pick up crayfish. Later investigations found both stated reasons to be untrue. Valentich had also failed to inform King Island Airport of his intention to land there, going against standard procedure. Valentich radioed Melbourne Flight Service to report that an unidentified aircraft was following him at 4,500 feet, and he was told there was no known traffic at that level, but Valentich insisted that he could see a large unknown aircraft which appeared to be illuminated by 4 bright landing lights. He was unable to confirm its type, but said it had passed about 1,000 feet overhead and was moving at high speed. He then reported that the aircraft was approaching him from the east and said the other pilot might be purposely toying with him. In his words, he mentioned that the aircraft was orbiting above him and that it had a shiny metal surface and a green light on it. Valentich further reported that he was experiencing engine problems. When he was asked to identify the aircraft, Valentich radioed that the thing above him was not an aircraft. His transmission was then interrupted by unidentified noise that was described as a metallic scraping sound before all contact was lost. If these chilling occurrences are not enough evidence to prove the existence of terrestrial beings and their interference with our planet, then it is a possibility that the Pentagon might be hiding something from the entire world. The question, what might they be hiding, remains unanswered. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.